My bad point, I've purposely picked it for the bad point, and I'm phrasing it this way, is that blamef has to settle for Fnatic. Like, here's what sucks about this move. The only person happy about this move is fucking Fnatic. How did they get blamef? Like, if you don't know, guys, when I wrote that Substack article, like 5 teams that would improve, I put Fnatic bottom because they were number 34 in the world, and I wouldn't keep, like, almost any of these players. Like, Crims gets to stay because he's a legacy player. Maybe you keep Body because he's trying to be an IG. You know what I mean? Like, beyond that, like, mate, you could fucking throw these names in a hat and just pick out 4 more names. Like, I don't give a fuck about this. I actually think if you're blamef, look, I'm happy you've got a team, and I'm almost certain you will frag out. But holy fuck, like, the team's you. You actually, for real, have to drop like a 1.20 rating every match. And even if you do, you're not going to win most of those matches. And I'll even be shocked, by the way. Remember, this team's going to have to go through fucking online qualifier. I don't think you'll even make it to most of the lands. Like, I think you'll get to the odd one. Here's the irony. This ties into what we were talking about 1 second ago, Maui Snake. blamef, from this second onwards, could be like the 5th best player in Counter-Strike, and it won't matter. He might not even be able to make the top 20. It might actually be impossible already. No matter what he does for the next 6 months, he could basically just Nightmare Simulator, just fucking playing all these insane matches, and it won't matter, especially because, as well, the one thing I'll agree with the haters on, even though I think it's incredibly ignorant, is he's obviously not the fucking, like, mega aggro player that just 1v9s the game. He's the other, I think there's 2 types of stars in Counter-Strike, and people ignore this. Yeah, there's the star that's like the super aggro, usually a rifler or super flicky AWPer, who dominates almost off, like, ballsy play, taking risks, like, forcing the enemy. But you also sometimes want that, like, stable production machine like this, where it's just a rifler who just gets it done every time in his spots. The downside is this. If you had a choice, let's say they're equal ability, just for the sake of this discussion. Let's say you have a comparison between Nerds and blamef. Here's the difference. It's not about is Nerds better than blamef. It's that if I could only have one on a bad team, I'd take Nerds. Because at that point in time, like, I might win a few of those games. The blamef angle is he's going to frag out, and it won't be his fault. He'll do really well, but you'll lose the game. So I think that's why I've said it's bad. I actually think the idea that, like, he has to settle for this team, it's like, so no one else in the whole scene thinks this guy's good. No one. The guy, he was top 24 years in a row and had, like, the most bonkers numbers. Like, and by the way, in every lineup he fragged, every single one. Like, think of all those lineups of Astralis everyone made fun of, like all those whack-ass players that had no business being in the lineup. He was just fragging the whole time. It was only at the end when they made him, as far as I can tell, become IGL again, that his own numbers tanked. And also, I don't even know if that's true, that, like, he just had all his own spots to go. To me, it looked like he potentially even gave up some of his roles when Stout and Yabi joined. So I think he actually got tricked into super fucking himself on that one. So to me, this has to just be bad, because it's not like he has to join G2, but there's not any other teams in the top 33 that this guy can be on. I've just said earlier, like, there's a whole bunch of fucking teams. Like, my article was like, ENCE, fucking, I mean, the joke is, you could have done Falcons if you will have the big balls to remove Make. There's so many teams could use this guy.
Yeah, I think, like, actually, like, blamef on Falcons would be really, really insane. I do think, like, in terms of, like, for Fnatic, I think they hit the jackpot getting blamef. For his sake, I really do hope, with all the respect to the other players, but for his sake, I hope that he gets some help also, because I think it will be way too difficult for him to be able to perform. One thing that I do think is good for blamef, though, which might sound a bit weird, is that I think he's playing the best CS when he has lesser good people around him. I do see him as a player that, let's maybe compare him to, like, let's say Kobe Bryant. Like, he wants the ball, and he wants to do his things, and he should obviously have, like, a Shaquille O'Neal next to him who can also help him at times. But I do think, like, he is playing the best he is. Like, I remember when I watched him in Complexity, he had, like, Rush, who was like a super kind of role player. He had Oboe, and then I can't remember who the third guy was. I know JKS came in at one point. Config, exactly. Yeah, Config. And for me, Config is like that guy who's just super pushy, like taking space, and then just blamef is just walking behind him, and doing his thing. And I think when we looked at Astralis most recently, because I also made a tweet about it, and for me it was like Stown was supposed to be Config for Blame, but Stown could not play as Config, because he was way more, he needs to be in the right position. He needs to get the information and what to do, blah blah blah. While as Config was just fully pushing through that smoke if he had to, and then blamef just getting the information. Okay, one guy is in warehouse, and then blamef, boom 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 boom. So I do think like if Blame and Body can find that synergy, because now we're just strictly talking about the T sides, but if those two players can find that synergy between them, where Body is taking the space and then Blame coming in second, I do think that they can manage to get something out of it. But then when we switch to the CT side, as I said, with all due respect to the players, but if I am G2 or if I am Donk, Nico, whoever, like I will not be afraid of going at the position where Body is holding, for an example. Or Crims for that fact also, for that matter also, because I do think like, there's a lot of players that are staying a bit too long on a team. I think Blame needs at least one more player who can just, relieve some of the pressure that he will have on the CT side, because you cannot have Blame F on all the positions. And once they start losing on CT side, if they, lose on B side Mirage all the time and, on short, like Blame F will be the connector player, as I understood, like the star position. So he will play in connector. That will eventually mean that he has to overcommit in some scenarios, because he has to, commit for the teammates, because they cannot do their job on B side, or the A anchor cannot do his job on A side. And I just think that might put him in a worse scenario. Whereas, let's say he would have a really good player who is holding A on Mirage or B on Mirage, then he would just like be in the zone, holding his position and playing his own game. So I think Fnatic is just one player away from actually they can make a pretty decent team. Because I think Mattis, that I've watched him play, I think he has the potential. Okay. But I'm not 100% sure about Afro. I think he's been good online, but LAN CS, there's too many missed shots, unfortunately. So I do think Fnatic is one or two players away of being able to make, because I do think blamef is that kind of guy that I mentioned earlier, that he's that holy shit, we're playing against blamef, and you don't know, like when you see him on the scoreboard, you don't know if he's going to pop off, and if he pop offs, then you're fucked basically. So I think that Fnatic, as I said, they hit the jackpot with signing blamef.
It's good for Fnatic. It does feel like they're one, maybe even two moves away from reaching the level of competitiveness that you would hope to have if you sign blamef on the roster. Like, I was actually kind of thinking just now, okay, would I actually have wanted blamef to be on, say, like OG instead? Like, what are worst possible landing spots for somebody like blamef? And yeah, Fnatic's pretty far down that list, because even if he got onto, like, say, a Game in Gladiators, who have proven themselves with the ecstatic under the ecstatic banner at the major, I think that would have been a really cool position for him to get to as well. Just because it's like, well, these guys have already proven themselves. Fnatic really,
at least on that one, you'd
much.
Also have the flair that they're all Danish as well. That could potentially add something extra too, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I kind of thought of them as a possibility when I'm seeing that he's landing on a team like Fnatic. It's like, this to me, it makes me just want to believe that Fnatic are gonna pull the trigger somewhere else. Like, that's where I have to hope this goes, because as they're currently constructed, I could see them punching into the top 30, but anything better than 25 is probably, it's not probably, it is beneath where blamef should be competing. He should be competing at the bare minimum a top 20 team, and I don't know if Fnatic even really have that with him on the roster, because of the things we've already said. On T side, unless he's playing more active and in the pack and just fighting with everybody, which a couple of maps he admittedly did on Inferno and Ancient, he was more of a space taker on those maps. But then maps where he got the moniker blamef, like Nuke, where he's just very slow and methodical, well, he's not going to have as much impact unless his entry pack players are the ones that are actually able to open up some space for him. So as it stands right now for him on Fnatic, it feels like this is highway robbery for Fnatic, and for blamef himself, it's almost like a career rehabilitation, where I feel like the sentiment around blamef is going to slowly change as we do inevitably see that blamef is going to put up insane numbers, and I hope that people hold that same energy that they have for people like Queserado, where it's like save Queserado. I think that same energy is going to slowly start creeping out for blamef if people are able to remove some of their biases that they had before about him. Where, by the way, guys, like, I feel like I can't believe this needs to be explained. It's like the fan perception of blamef is that he didn't play winning Counter-Strike, and I can say that with his individual play, that just can't be true. That just can't be true. Like, if he's locking down his positions as well as he did on those CT sides, that's not possible that you can say that he's playing non-winning Counter-Strike. But it is a fair judgment call to say that the way that he was calling as an in-game leader wasn't the most apt way to run a team in 2024's meta. So those are two very different things. And you can be scornful for the way that blamef wanted to IGL and mid-round, and I had some complaints about it actually through the closed qualifier and RMR with that team and how he was calling, but I definitely had no qualms about the way that blamef the individual was playing. And people are just so quick to conflate those. They're almost actively being disingenuous with the reasons that they dislike that Astralis team and the reasons they dislike blamef, and they're just saying one-to-one blamef doesn't play winning Counter-Strike, and they're unable to separate the IGLing from the actual player. And I am so thankful that it is still going to be body calling for this team, and blamef is just going to get to frag out.
By the way, one thing just to touch on what you're saying there, I'll make it more like a deeper anthropological point about the humans who play CS, all the fans, which is, this is an example. I'll use the two players that we've mentioned today who had a hard time getting teams, but just look like straight guaranteed frags, Dexter and fucking blamef. Now, what's hilarious is, the reason I think fans hate on both players is because they conflate their personal experience of playing fucking matchmaking with what pro CS is. So they hear stories like, Dexter's toxic, and they go, yeah, I fucking hate toxic people that just complain. It's like, they don't mean toxic like that, you moron. He's not like spamming slurs while he fucking spin bots and griefs you. Like, the point there is maybe he's being too aggressive with a teammate because he didn't flash for him or something. And so similarly, when they think of blamef, they go, just a baiter, isn't he just baits. I hate it when someone baits in my games. Like, mate, no one ever baited in your game like this guy plays. If someone baited like you think blamef did in your game, you would win the game in matchmaking. You do realise that, right? Like, there aren't enough frags to be baited in a game to get the numbers this guy was getting. It's why I gave that example to you on Twitter, Maui, that I'll always bring up. One day I'll do a video and just bring up the old Reddit threads. Before Astralis became the GOAT lineup, even when they were the one that won the Atlanta Major, people used to tell me, they didn't say glazing, but I used them on day, like, stop glazing Device, he just gets eco frags, right? Guys, he ended his career in CSGO as like the potential GOAT of CSGO. And at the end of CSGO, not a single pro coach would ever tell you that guy baited. Now, I'll just throw this out there. Why does no pro ever say blamef baits? Have you ever noticed that? Nobody has a bad thing to say about this guy. In fact, that's even the weirdest thing about his particular case. People used to go too far the other way in complexity. Remember all those stories? Like, he's so diligent, looking at demos all day long. Didn't matter that, by the way, he was never that great at IGL. That made him a great IGL because they heard that story. Like, oh, brilliant, very diligent. What I don't get as well about the blamef angle is just this. He's never done a single thing wrong, as far as I can tell, in terms of PR. Like, there's that one time they sent Stair to do an interview, so that's his fault now. Like, this guy's never put a foot, he's never been toxic to anyone, he's never been BM to anyone. He's just sat down at his crosshair, fragged people in the head, and if you think they're all eco and bait kills, you just don't know Counter-Strike, I'm telling you. He might get active on eco rounds. By the way, I'll say the same thing I used to say about Device. If that was true, that he killed everyone on eco rounds, this isn't 1.6, you idiot. You don't just ace people on eco rounds. What are you talking about? If you can actually consistently kill all the people with those mega OP CS2 and CSGO pistols, that's really useful, actually. It's probably an underrated quality in this game. So I even think that's just a whack angle. Like, when you say those angles, by the way, guys, you're just telling on yourself you don't know pro CS. Because, again, you're just thinking it's like, he's just baiting me just to get the kill, and that's it. You can't drop 30 bombs by baiting people at pro level CS. Also, you think they're just going to let him bait for like 2 years in Australia? It's like, oh, well, sorry, Device, he's just baiting you, mate. And also, I'll just put that out there as well. Logically, if I combine the two narratives, if they had Device and blamef, no wonder they never won. It was just two people baiting everyone. Whatever, good joke, whatever.
To see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.